the Alpine team have revealed their full car, what we're going to be getting into the season, and their livery. Now, the livery's gotten a lot of heat, but the actual car itself has a lot of hidden details and features that do make it a front-to-back difference from before. They say this new Alpine car is front-to-back different, and the only thing that hasn't changed is the steering wheel. So we're going to go over it and everything that you need to know. And if you enjoy these videos, please give it a like, subscribe if you are new here. You guys make me smile with your comments and what you guys are doing for the channel. Genuinely makes me happy, so thank you so much. Let's get into the new Alpine car, which is very exciting. I know the livery isn't. So as you know, I like to start from the front wing. Let's talk about it from the front nose and then getting to the back of the car. So starting with this car, as you can tell, carbonized out. Now, the biggest reason as to why these teams are doing this is because it's the cheapest alternative to losing weight. So going with this carbon look, and from the front, I know it's unpopular, but I like the look of the car. I think it actually looks cool. I like that teams are going on this aggressive weight saving route because they're trying to make the most out of performance. And I really do think on TV it's going to look a lot better. I know it's kind of controversial, but I just want the cars to be fast and I want the racing to be fast. Obviously I want them to look beautiful as well, but Alpine's kind of in the mid lane anyways. I'm just going to be happy if Aston Martin, Ferrari, Red Bull, you know, they look great. So hopefully that's the case. But talking about the front wing, flatter, and this whole entire nose on the front wing itself, wow, is a big boy. It's a big boy and it's pretty much a F2 style nose. Now, the reasoning behind this is to distribute the air evenly from the right side to the left side. They want it to be distributed evenly and is a pretty flat nose, especially going down into the cone of where that wing is. It's very flat there to, as I said, distribute the air, and they have a heavy focus on the air going to the middle of the car. As you can see with these kind of Ferrari stakes that they have in their front wings, but also how much bigger those little stainless steel type walls are on the front wing that are trying to get the air distributed to the middle of the car for this Alpine car. And now another big thing to notice is they've changed the front wing from what it was before. Before they had all these kinds of crazy edges, but now it's more of a flatlined wing. And as I said, they're trying to push that air more to the middle of the car to get that performance balance to be exactly where they want it to be. And also with that, they changed the front suspension. Now, this could be a big thing. It could not be. Probably adding more to that more braking power and being able to brake harder. The way you distribute that suspension geometry is important for that, but also aerodynamically, they've changed the front suspension and their top wishbone is definitely different to before. A lot much higher up, as I said, to try and get more brake pressure and braking power. But a big thing and a hidden detail, which you can almost perfectly see in this picture, but every other picture has it pretty hidden. Now, look at the side pods, and if you see towards the nose, there's a little bit of a slit, kind of like the S-duct for the Ferrari. Now, the more I've looked into this, the more I think that this is kind of a cooling method. But I have a theory behind it to when we get to the side of the car and the rear of the car where I can talk about it. It's not the same thing that Ferrari has. The Ferrari is an S-duct. It's going from the floor up into the top of the car, and that worked with that bathtub design. But with this car, it works differently, and I think they're going for a different thing. Still pretty cool and a very hard detail to notice on this car. Now looking at it from a side angle, first things to note, you can't really see that part that I was talking about, but you can see that they've changed their undercut in their side pod. They've also changed the floor. Now this is very important to note for the floor what they have done. They have gone for that RB19 style pretty much identically. This is a great picture showing you how this looks with these little metal grates into it and that little pickup they have from the outwash of the floor going now to the top of the floor to give more downforce. This is almost identical to the RB19 and pretty much a copied spec of that. They also, if you look at the car from a upper view, you can see that they've kind of pushed up that floor and some of those floor fences are a little bit more out than they used to be on the car. This is actually also a good picture showing the 2023 and 2024. Now, they didn't move like the driver's seat back. It's a difference of angles with the car, but it shows you kind of what type of floor concept they're going for here now currently than what they used to. And as you can tell, it's a bigger undercut to what it used to be. You obviously see with the side pod that it's more of a water slide now. It's very much Aston Martin-like in the beginning of the year. And you can see that the engine cover is still as wide as it was before. And I'm going to explain that even more in detail as we get to the rear of the car. Also, last year for their renders, their floor design didn't have much to it. They were very simple, and I didn't think they wanted to show it off. But this year, it's their full floor. And not only that, with the full floor, you can see that they were much more aggressive on this design. They actually have a floor edge properly to the Red Bull design. They had no floor edge last year. And we do know with Omar that they weren't even going to the cap for the aerodynamic budget. So like, it's a completely different team. And I think this is big steps. Like, I'm very much impressed looking at this car, what the changes are. It really is front to back when you totally dive into it. So as you can see with the water slide from this part, you can see that it's a little bit thinner on the outer edge, but that water slide is a lot more defined than it used to be. They added the upgrade pretty late on in the season for this water slide that they had that's kind of more developed to what they had before. In the beginning, they started off very minor, now it's major, now it's severely major. So they really needed that rear downforce, which I never really heard them talking about as a problem, but definitely seems to be an issue, and the undercut is a lot more prominent in this new side pod. The actual side pod inlet, as I talked about, is changed. Before, it's not a huge change. The biggest change is that little S-stuck thing that they have to it. So let's get into that part and let's talk about the rear of the car. As we look towards the rear of the car, let's look into the engine cover, what type of suspension they have, and the beam wing itself. When you look into the engine cover, you can see that it's kind of changed, not too much, but they have changed a little bit on the roll hoop intake or the engine intake. Kind of the way that it goes in, it's still pretty close to what Alpine usually has it to. But the actual engine cover itself is pretty wide. Now, they said that they've been going crazy on the actual way that they've distributed everything on the internal parts and packing it up so much. Matt Harmon has talked about the actual car itself. They've allowed him to go to the extreme with this design. And as he said, front to back, it is completely different. You can definitely notice that within the outside packaging, but you can also tell that, I don't know if it's just me, but this has got to be the biggest engine cover that we have on the grid. It's very big, and that tells me that a lot of cooling is required from this car. Now, I think that side pod inlet is to give it a little bit more cooling, that kind of S-stuck thing that we're talking about. And I think they want that air to get distributed back through part of the engine cover going through the side pod. I think that's the theory that they're trying to go for more engine cooling, but also to provide it to go back to that now new beam wing setup that they had. Their car wasn't slow in a straight line. Their car was slow pretty much because of the engine. They actually had a pretty aerodynamically fit car. I think the engine isn't able to take what these other newer engines have, especially with the freeze. And they've kept that same push rod suspension in both the front and the rear, but as I said, small gains, it's not really much of a difference. As I said, they put up that front suspension, but the rear of the car, it's a more flatter rear wing. When you look at it, it's a little bit more defined. They like going for this little middle hump. They like lowering the middle part. It's been pretty common with all their rear wings on their cars, and they have a cutout, but it's done differently to the other cars. But as I said, it is very important to see where this air from this side pod inlet is coming out to. It's a very defined car. I'm very impressed with what they've done, and genuinely, I think that it's a lot different to what we've had from Alpine in the past couple years. I thought their 22 to 23 evolution was not enough to get them in the fight. I think they're actually taking it this year. They've got nothing to lose. They got to go with a completely different design. They've completely changed that floor design, and the actual undercut in the side pod is a little bit more defined. A lot of good things, and as I said, this is a completely different car, and I'd love to hear your take on the Alpine A524. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and peace.